car in front of me is a 1971 Lotus Elan, a truly iconic British sports car that I'm excited to be sharing with you today. This one is a Plus 2S, meaning that it's got an extra 2 seats in the back and some added luxuries over the standard car. Not only that, this is a Restomod, meaning it's been fettled with underneath. Keep watching to find out exactly what's been done to the car. We're also going to be chatting to the owner, Nick, and we'll be driving around the beautiful mountain roads here in South Wales. My name's Craig and you're watching Craig on Cars. The Elan was the first Lotus road car to use a steel backbone chassis with a fiberglass body. Launched in 1963 originally as a 2-seater convertible which could be bought built from factory or as a kit to be assembled at home. Back then a popular option as it saved 25% in UK taxes. Colin Chapman would supply disassembly instructions that you'd have to read backwards in order to put the car together, as tax rules stated kit cars couldn't be sold with assembly instructions. With its F1 inspired suspension, disc brakes all around, race car geometry and famous lightness, the Elan quickly became the sales success that Lotus were desperate for. Chapman was never a man to rest on his laurels and in 1967 launched the Elan Plus 2, the first 4-seater Lotus, in order to appeal to a wider market. It was wider, longer, had bigger brakes and tyres over the 2-seater and was more luxurious inside with additional instrumentation, a heater, electric windows and leather seats. From 1969 it also offered an upgraded big valve 130 engine, as this particular Plus 2S had when new. Marketed to families with children, Chapman's brief for the Elan Plus 2 was that it must be capable of transporting 2 adults and 2 children 1,000 miles in comfort with their luggage. The success of the Elan over its 11-year production run ultimately allowed Lotus to continue in F1, and it directly inspired other historically important sports cars such as the Toyota 2000 GT and Mazda MX-5, or Miata for those of you watching in America. It's even said that Gordon Murray was disappointed he couldn't replicate the Elan's perfect steering in his legendary McLaren F1 supercar. In the intro I mentioned that this particular Elan was a Restomod, but what exactly does that mean? Simply put, restomodding is the trend for updating classic vehicles with more modern running gear, a practice with origins in 1930s America with the birth of hot rodding, dropping flathead V8s into old Model A Fords. Restomods follow the same philosophy but in a more discreet and subtle way. This particular Lotus Elan has received the touch from Lotus specialists Spyder Cars. It's received their complete space frame Spyder chassis, a Ford Zetec 2-litre 16-valve raceline engine, 5-speed MT75 gearbox with upgraded hydraulic clutch, Gen V throttle body, fuel injection, mapped to give 190 brake horsepower, upgraded brakes all around, a Ford Sierra viscous limited slip differential, and to finish off it's also got 14-inch custom mini light alloy wheels, xenon headlamps fitted with Mazda MX-5 pop-up motors, and a brand new exhaust front to back. It's also sporting a new paint job and livery, which we'll talk about later in the episode. So let's hear from Nick and then we'll hit the road.
I'm Nick and I drive a 1971 Lotus Elan Plus 2 Zetec Spyder. I got this car last February, which was just before the UK went into lockdown, so now is pretty much the first time that I can drive it properly. The reason I bought a Lotus Elan is really starting from when I was about 10 years old. I developed a passion for cars because my dad rescued an Austin Healey 3000 Mark I. We lived in West Wales and it was in a house behind ours, and they had a flood and the car was getting saturated with water and there was no one living there. So we looked after it for a while and eventually it became a part of the family. And I learned to drive in that car. I took it apart and put it back together with my dad. And then winding forward to the present day, I always had in my mind that I'd like my own classic car. The Healey's still in the family and I still love driving it. But I always fancied the Lotus Elan. I never imagined that I'd get an opportunity to drive one until my friend Craig, who's a photographer, actually took some pictures of this car on a rally to France a year before I bought it. And it was really when I saw the photographs of this car on the racetrack that I thought one day I'd like to have a car like that. I was having a coffee in Cowbridge and I saw this car with a for sale sign on. And it was also the year of my 50th birthday. And I thought, well, the car's 50 as well, so it all just seems right. So I did what it says on the hubcaps, what's stopping you? And I thought, well, nothing, so I went for it. And now I am the proud owner of this wonderful car.
Thanks, Nick. Now let's fire the car up and hit the road. Cliche-like, isn't it? But it does feel quite go-kart-esque.
Yeah.
Have you driven an original Elan?
I've not. No. I think my uncle had one, but I've spoken to some of the engineers at Spyder, who I think 30 years ago they started building their version of the chassis for this car, and they say that they've tried to stay true to the geometry and the handling that Colin Chapman originally intended. And you do get a tremendous amount of feedback from the road.
I've seen contemporary reports on the car that say that it does really follow every little groove on the road.
Very much so, and we've got a little corner coming up here, and you just get the sense that it is glued to the road, like you say, like a go-kart.
Yeah.
There's never any hint that it's going to lose the back end.
It's the perfect car for these roads.
Very much, yeah. It's just so nice. We're half an hour from where I live, and if you've got a bit of spare time on an afternoon and the weather's like this, it's just nice to go out and experience what we've got on our doorstep.
One thing I noticed as we were driving up here to start filming was you were weaving quite a lot between the potholes. And any reason for that?
The main reason is that the first week I had this, and probably the second drive, I was going down a fairly narrow road and there was a car coming a bit too much on my side, so I was forced over to the verge, and I did hit a recessed drain cover, and it caused the wheel to impact with the wheel arch, causing some damage. So within a week it was back in the body shop, having the fiberglass wing with the wheel arch rebuilt and some new paint. But we also then took that chance to fit some brand new dampers which are adjustable and get it really well set up.
Yeah.
And it's always a bit of a conundrum with these cars, because traditionally the Spyders sit very high and it doesn't look quite right, and it's another reason for the purists to hate them even more. But if you do put in the time and get that balance of the looks and the handling and the ride height, then I think that's what they really managed to do well.
And it's strange, isn't it, how the car enthusiast world kind of falls firmly into two camps. You're either a purist, you want everything original the way it came out of factory, or you don't mind modifying the car and improving it, upgrading it, but you're still getting the driving experience, maybe modernise it.
Yeah, very much so. And this is as it is as a resto mod. It's very much an everyday car, and when it's not pouring with rain or snowing, I take my daughter to school in it, I drive to work in it, and it's very functional. With the electric fuel injection, it starts first time, it's quick, as you've seen, and but the main thing is you can enjoy that experience of driving a classic car. It's got that smell of the petrol, the sound of the fuel pump.
I was going to say, one of the first things I've noticed getting in is the smell. It's petrol.
That's also a bit of a quirky design feature of these Plus 2s, because the vent from the fuel tank actually runs along the headlining here on both sides. So quite why they thought that was the best place to vent petrol, I don't know, but that's partly why there's the smell.
Because they knew that's what we wanted. Tell us a bit more about the WD Wins side of it, with the livery on the outside.
Yeah, so this car was acquired by WD Wins in Cowbridge. It was originally blue with a silver sparkle roof, and the silver sparkle roof was very much a thing of the 70s. But Lee, whose company is WD Wins, has a great eye for style, and if you don't mind not being a purist with original paint colours and putting some tweaks to the design, then he's got a really great eye for doing that sort of thing. So WD Wins, they specialise in classic cars and the classic car experience.
Yeah.
And I asked him what WD Wins means, and it's actually a person, hence the signature on the side. And it's Who Dares Wins is the name of that man, fictitious man. And everything about the company's voice and ethos is about how would WD Wins speak, and what would he wear, and what would he drive, and what sort of things would he do.
Okay. Hence what's stopping you on the hubcap.
So they organise events. This road is one of the Bear Run, which is on one of the stickers. That's an annual event going from Cowbridge around these valleys. And then the other side is selling the cars. And that's exactly the sort of thing when someone like me was looking for a classic car.
Yeah.
That was a little bit different. He says, well, what's stopping you?
The noise is just amazing, and for such a it's a 2 litre, but it's a 4-cylinder, and then the noise you get from it, and I suppose it's a modern 2 litre engine as well. It's a new engine,
modern 2 litre 16 valve twin cam engine. It's obviously been tweaked a bit to get some more performance out of it, but I believe the sound is quite similar to an original Lotus twin cam engine.
Certainly puts a smile on your face, doesn't it?
It's just a lovely sensory experience. Like the smell and the leather and the petrol, the sound, and it's a comfortable car. You know, we've been over a few bumps and we didn't feel those cattle grids, but it does stick to the road. So it's a real credit to what Lotus had in mind when they designed these cars to be light and fast and easy to drive.
And even a credit to Spyder for being able to upgrade the car in a way that actually still feels quite true to what the original must have been like.
A lot of original Elans, they do notoriously corrode in certain places, like the suspension turrets, so they capture road grit and moisture. And a lot of people would just install a Spyder chassis on and then keep the rest of the car original. They don't go the full way of putting on the Ford components. We had some work done on the exhaust, and then it went on to the dyno, and I think they got 190 brake out of it, which is pretty good considering it's a very light car.
Yeah.
You know, it's
and the horsepower per ton ratio must be quite good, actually, quite respectable, because you can look online and find all sorts of different weights for these cars. I think the 2-seater convertible was maybe just under 700 kilograms, and the 2-seater was bigger, so maybe hovering around the 900 kilogram mark.
Yeah, that sounds
but if you've got nearly 200 horsepower in a 900 kilogram car, actually, we've got a brand new BMW Z4, which is 260 brake horsepower, but when you consider the weight in it, actually the power per tonnage on this is much higher. And of course that was Colin Chapman's ethos, wasn't it? Was lightness.
Just add lightness. Yes, yeah. Although I never figure why you put 3 ashtrays in a car so small. One in each door.
And another design quirk on this car that I've come across, apparently there are little lights in lots of places. I'm not sure whether it's on all of them.
This hasn't got them, but yes, there are. There's
lights
a switch
inside
that's got panel written on it. And, but yeah, there is some of them do have a map light that comes out underneath the passenger's knees there.
But of course he was famous for not smoking, and you say, why did he put so many in the car? But I suppose back then it was very normal, wasn't it, to smoke.
And sponsor John Player, or have John Player as a sponsor.
Well, that was it, that's got to be part of it. And if it wasn't for this car, probably Lotus wouldn't be here today. I think the car that came before it was commercial flop. And of course Lotus famously, just like Ferrari, was a racing company first.
Yeah.
And they needed to sell road cars to fund their racing, and the Elan was a success and enabled them to carry on going for another 10 years, I think. So. And
also it came out at the same time as the E-Type was an option as well, and it wasn't that much. The E-Type wasn't that much more expensive.
No, I think it was maybe £400 or £500 more expensive. So very much a direct competitor, but very different ethos. You got the E-Type 2+2, which was probably the V12 engine or V8 option.
I think the rear light lenses are common with some of the models of the E-Type.
Okay.
And that's obviously a very common thing of British sports cars, is that they all borrowed and stole from each other's parts bins.
Plus, even with this car, the windscreen is from a Ford Capri.
That's right. Yeah.
And the front bumper is from a Ford Anglia.
Yeah.
And I suppose even the whole Restomodding thing, it's got a Ford engine in it, but the original engine was a Ford engine back in the 60s and 70s. It's all keeping it true to the original
like the DNA of the car, Ford drivetrain and engine, and here it is just with a more modern one.
And at the end of the day, if that's what enables these cars to stay on the road and be enjoyed.
Did you know though that the designer of this car,
Hickman?
Ron Hickman, is also famous for designing the Black & Decker workmate?
It's interesting, isn't it, how design and engineering can jump industries. The Aston Martin DBS that we had on the channel recently, the designer of that, William Towns, before designing, that was the first car he designed, and before that it was designing rear lights for cars and car seats, and the jump to go to designing the whole car. And then, like as you say, Ron Hickman was a Ford guy originally, designed this, and then went over to tools.
I think he designed a lot of things actually, which he was a bit of a James Dyson of his day. And everyone jokes about the Black & Decker workmate. They're saying, "Oh, that's a ridiculous idea." You can still buy them. I know a lot of the cars that go into Spyder for Restomodding are basket cases. They're just an ID and a body shell.
And again, it's just about keeping these cars alive and so that they can be enjoyed.
And there weren't that many made. I think, what was it, something 3,000 mark of these +2?
I think of the +2s, it was just under 16,000 Elans in total. And from what I understand, there's roughly 500 +2s still left on the road. What an amazing machine. It's easy to see how these cars are so loved by those that get the opportunity to drive and own one. Its importance also in the influence of sports car design for years and decades even after its own production run came to an end, just goes to show how special this little car is. Let's not forget also that the success in period of this car enabled Lotus to keep on racing in Formula 1 and for the company to survive, so it really is an important little car. The Restomod side of this specific car just adds another dimension to its appeal. The bigger, more modern engine gains usability, and driving thrills come from the uprated suspension and chassis, yet it retains its uniqueness and classic charm. And whatever your view on restoration versus Restomod, there's one thing that nobody can deny, and that is that this is one cool little car that won't fail to put a smile on your face. That brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you've enjoyed watching. If you're not already a subscriber to the channel, please do subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified of future content. And please do me a big favour and hit that like button so that other people get to see these episodes that they might enjoy as well. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you soon.
I'm Nick and I drive a 1971 Lotus Elan Plus 2 Zetec. Did I say that right? Yeah.
One thing that I also get a lot of doing this is people stopping to have a look.
Yeah.
You do get a lot of that. Arrest. Yeah, windows down. Let's have a look. Yeah. Lovely, isn't it? Cheers. I won't say anything, don't worry, we'll cut that bit out. To drive and own it, and also right. Oh dear. Rookie error on my part not bringing sunglasses, and they didn't fit sun visors.
No sun visors.